Howdy, folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got a great show for you with my co-host, David Null, and the dogs in the background howling. David Null, the Hawkeye Two Feathers. Welcome to the show.
And thank you, Robert, as always. And as always, we greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And we continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the creator. So come on in tonight. We've got our story for this evening is called The Great Head.
Yes, we don't know what that means. It means a head. It means a lot of chopping head or something.
Yeah, might be some chopping going on.
Might be. Got to stick around for that. Everybody loves that kind of stuff.
Chop.
I know, it's amazing how people are always thinking of that stuff. It's like, hey, and there's Chloe. Chloe's in the house. Thank you for joining us tonight. As we start this great show, we're going to be talking a little bit about Columbus Day because Columbus Day is coming right up. And we're going to learn a little bit. Like last week, we learned about Leif Erikson. You know, Eric the Red discovering the Vikings coming down. We're just going to review here a little bit. We learned about the Chinese maybe coming to cross on the Pacific side. There's Witchy Moon. Anyway, we learned about Prince Modoc in the African King Musa, who sent men and children and women and babies over here probably to conquer the land long before Columbus, set foot in the Americas. Yeah, go ahead.
I just watched a documentary the other day about the bog people of Florida down around Titusville. Years ago, they dug up some folks and said, wait a minute. And so they found like 25 bodies in this. It's really in a bog. And so they dated them back to 20,000 years ago. And that they are not Asian. They're European. And they're like, they're still arguing about it, but there was still some brain matter in these folks' skulls. I mean, they were so well preserved. They were wrapped in cloth and basically submerged in this bog. And but it's amazing. All the stuff, of course, went to the Smithsonian. But there are people. There are people in Florida. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was like, golly, I got to tell Robert about this. But since it fits right into what we're talking about, so what they found with the bog folks, and back in the 50s, they went in around Titusville, opening up some of those channels for boating and stuff. And when they did, they dug down and then made these islands in the from the chert and stuff that they dug. I'm trying to dredging. When they go along, they dredge, so they fill up the dredge and then dump it out. And they go down and they'd fill up the dredge and dump it out. So there are these islands that were made from that. And so what they dug up from the bottom of the bay or the waterways, there's all these different kinds of bones just laying on top of the ground. If you walk around one of some of those chert islands down there. And so anyway, they find mastodon bones. And they're sort of side by side with these bog people. So mastodons were shorter than the great woolly mammoths. They were a shorter kind of animal, but so they were a lot easier for them to hunt and kill. I found that really amazing. But there wasn't, it's a night for barking dogs, isn't it? Um, um, but they said that that with the study and what they had was because they could already date the bones, but because the bones were found with mastodon bones and carvings on the mastodon bones, really nice carvings, I might add. And so these folks weren't stupid, you know. And also with the mastodon bones, they figure, oh my God, you know, there's always been that thing, you know. Well, you know, the dinosaurs were dead, and then people came along. No, there was people hunting the mastodons during the dinosaur age.
Yeah.
And the dinosaur age has is not as far back as they tell us. So a mastodon, small elephant, you know, is sort of post dinosaur age, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, there had to be a transition area in there, but 20,000 years ago, there would have been mastodons, and there would have been mammoths and all of those things like that. Just makes you wonder, you know, were they, you know, how are they, you know, what happened to those people, you know, or were they the first inhabitants? And just like we're going to find out tonight, and it seems to be the way the world works. You have one group of people living somewhere, and another group of people comes in and says, we want that land, and they exterminate, literally exterminate them, use them for, you know, slaves and things like that. You know, it's hard to imagine, but that seems to be the cycle of life, I'm finding out by studying history. Here, Baby Ghost says, us Iroquois have been here for 33,000 moons, so other people had to be here too. And that's true. So if you're around for all that time, and just think about it like that, and another group of people came in and said to the Iroquois, hey, we want your land, and they just took it. We went to plenty of shows here where, you know, it showed how they used the tribes to fight against each other. The tribes thought, hey, you know, we got the upper hand because these people are powerful. They're going to give us guns. They're going to give us weapons and tools we need. And then we're going to go out and destroy our enemies. And then as soon as they destroyed their enemies, then they came and destroyed them and took their land. And then, you know, and then there wasn't many of them. And pretty soon, you know, there wasn't enough to defend any of them. The white man was here, and they took over and enslaved them. And that's what we're going to find out tonight about Columbus. He kind of, well, but that was the I should say the culture back then. You know, he was here to make money, and I found out with all my studies that it's always the same way. You know, Columbus went into this with the idea of, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to find a route to the West Indies. I'm going to get spices and stuff like that, and I'm going to come back, and this is going to be profitable. And that's how he kept presenting it. And well, in a way, it was profitable, but you know, he had to get financing for all of this, and that's where the king and queen, you know, Isabella came in, and they financed him. And he could have got financing from somebody, but anyway, it was rough, and nobody wanted to finance a trip like that because, like, the Portuguese didn't want to finance it because they already were sailors. They were sailing around the Horn of Africa and going up into the West Indies that way. So why would you need another route that's, you know, could be treacherous if you already have a good route? And that's why these other countries didn't want to finance it. They had land routes. They had the route around the Horn of Africa there, and they weren't interested in sailing across the big long ocean, because the Canary Islands, there was a lot of islands in the Atlantic, but the Canary Islands were like kind of the last stop. And there was natives on the Canary Islands, and they enslaved them and converted them and put up ports and stuff, and and then it was a conquest to move on to the next group. I guess you could say. So let's start all of this out, because otherwise we're gonna way behind. And I know I don't know how those first people got here, but I imagine at some point in time that the Europeans came over here multiple times throughout history, even before Columbus. I mean, the Vikings did it. The Africans did it. Why wouldn't other Europeans do it?
Well, see, and that's one of the things that, the bog people kind of upset the apple cart, because they weren't the Clovis. Actually, they were sort of saying that the original Clovis people were probably the bog people.
Yeah.
And rather than the Asians bringing Clovis points over during the Clovis period, as they call it, no, wait, they already knew how to do it, which meant there was people already here.
Yep.
From 20,000 years ago. They weren't all wiped out.
Yep.
So the fact that, where did these people come from? They were already here. Well, but still, but the DNA testing they did seemed to show that there was more indication from these Western Europeans than it was from Asians. So the whole idea of, America got, settled by people from Asia, it did, but that's not the only place it came from.
Yeah, it came from all over. And I'm sure there was people here longer than that. You're right. There was people here long before that. And they may have been a very small group, but then who knows? They probably got wiped out by another group that came in, which we're going to find out here how these groups get wiped out. And
the idea that they found the bog people and proved how long ago there have been, upright people with tools and burial procedures. These people weren't just, monkeys chasing stuff. No, these were smart people.
Yep. Yes. So let's get on with Columbus. Columbus was from a city in Genoa, Italy. And back in the day, those places were, Italy was divided up more. All these places were divided up. There was a lot of wars going on, land disputes, kings and queens of the ages. He was born in Genoa, Italy, about the year 1451. Now, as he grew up, he was probably a cabin boy, loved sailing, sailed all over the world, because, Italy, Portugal, Spain, all cities on the coast, Mediterranean's a big area of sailing and trading with Africa, getting around that area meant a lot of trading, and the waterways were like highways, the super highways. Well, anyway, and besides that, at that point in time, shipbuilding was getting really good. They had pretty darn good ships to sail in at that point. Okay, and there was a lot of sea battles. If you had a good navy, your country was going to do really well. Anyway,
let me add something quick.
Yes.
So while he was the cabin boy moving around and doing things, he was also learning things, and he was hearing things from the old masters and the boat builders. When you're young and you're hanging around, and so I think that Columbus got some of this because there were folks that knew that the new world was over there, and that he picked up some of these stories from those old mariners. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, absolutely. He probably did. Well, he sailed all over the place. Eventually, he met a woman, of course. Her family was of they weren't royal status or nothing, but her family was map makers, and he became a map maker for quite a while. And eventually went back on the ocean sailing, and he did take some trips up north to the Arctic, which to this point I really don't know why he would have been going to the Arctic, but I think he had an idea that there was more land or a way to get to the Indies for that trading route, and I think his idea was to get over there some way, but the Arctic part did not go very well. Okay,
I think with the Arctic back then, there were seals and whales, and whale oil was very important. So he might have went, sort of as a whaling ship kind of deal.
Oh, absolutely. You got to remember, back in the day, things were pretty primitive. They had primitive compasses. They had primitive maps. He would have been navigating with a sextant to get where he needs to go, and a compass. He did have that. He would have probably had a map of some sort to get where he was going. But the important part is he met up with Queen eventually. Well, he was going around kind of shopping for a investor. And the King of Portugal said, no, we're not really interested. And that wasn't a good thing for him, but eventually showed up on Queen Isabella's door. And
hey, Isabella! Hey, I'm a Christopher Columbus. I'm here to ring the bell.
Yeah. And, she was like, well, yeah, he had a wine and dine, and he stayed around there for quite a while trying to woo his way in. And yet they said no, and off on his little mule or donkey or whatever he had, off to the next city. Well, eventually, they called him back. Like I said once before, I think they thought about it and said, well, this guy, he made a good point. And Columbus was quite the showman, maybe even a little bit crazy, like they said, which I think eventually it kind of got the best of him. He was a little bit on the off the rocker side, but as you know, with most places, the guy that's a little off the rocker is usually the one that discovers things, conquers lands, does stuff like that. It ain't the normal, everyday, average guy. You know what I mean?
And that's sort of what I was just sort of referring to, in that he had heard things as he was growing up and hanging around, and so he had heard stories, and hey, do you know there's a new land over there, and stuff like that. So I think the reason they pulled him back was they got a second opinion.
Yeah, and remember, at this point in time, Spain was at war. They were trying to expel the Moors out of Spain, and they were winning. So that they needed to invest some money, and this was might for the little bit that they were going to invest in the ship. Well, it might be a good investment. Although they never expected him to return. They figured, this is kind of a lost cause. But he took 3 ships. 2 of the ships were 60-ton ships. They were about 70 foot long. And then he had a 100-ton ship named the Santa Maria. The 2 smaller 60-ton ships were caravels, I guess they call them. They were given to him to use because the land that they conquered, this was a price that was offered up as a price. So literally, she didn't have to pay. She did not hawk. It's fabled that she hawked her jewels to get him these boats and stuff, but that's kind of all fake. So he got the 2 ships, and then investors sprung for the Santa Maria. They traveled from the coast. He was offered up criminals. He was offered to take criminals and people out of prison and put them on the ships and use them, but he did end up finding crews of men to man the ships, which I thought was quite interesting. So he did. They got the 3 ships, as we know them, the Pinta, the Nina, and the Santa Maria. The Santa Maria was also known as the Dirty Woman, as the sailors would call it. Okay, so as they made their way out, they went to the Canary Islands, which is pretty much the farthest point west as you could go at the time. They realized that the sails weren't so good on their ships, and they traded off their sails from round sails to square sails. As we can see by this picture, this is what the boats would have sort of looked like, the 2 smaller boats. Now, the smaller boats were actually better because they were more maneuverable, they said, than the bigger ship. The bigger ship was not very maneuverable, and the smaller ships were very maneuverable, and they were much more seaworthy, I guess.
70 foot, a mobile home is like 65 feet. Yeah. So if you want to get an idea, a 65-foot mobile home is what they were basically in.
Yes, it wasn't big. Yeah, and he went with a number of men. I think he had 120 men altogether, or something like that. You have to quote me, and I got it wrote down here somewhere. But he had about 120 men altogether on the 3 ships. And eventually they traded out the sails they had for these sails. They were called 3-mast ships, meaning this big one, the Santa Maria, was a 3-mast ship. And it really wasn't much bigger than these other boats. But you can see the difference in the hulls on these ships, how they were made, meaning that they were more maneuverable. So they set out from the Canary Islands. Their progress was really good, and Columbus was on their ships. They did take. This is one of the things that they took. They took, crossbows. They took some. I think they took some guns and weapons and things like that. But there was no soldiers. None of the men that were on board the ships were soldier men. He didn't take an army with him. It was just regular men. But he did take one guy along who was a taxman to make sure from Queen Isabella that whatever Columbus discovered or whatever he traded for and the profits, that the queen would get her share, the king and queen would get their share and not be cheated. So believe it or not, Columbus took a taxman along to be taxed. Go figure, right?
I wonder if he made it there and back again, or did he go overboard?
No, he did. Unfortunately, and that's the next part of the story. So when Columbus left, his sailing was really good. He was making a fast rate of progress, but he kept 2 log books. One was the actual rate of travel, and the second book was a faster rate of travel. And so, he could present it as look how fast we went, look how close it really is. And really, the second book was actually better than the first book. But he, in 10 days, he covered 1,160 miles, believe it or not. The crew, didn't see any land, but Columbus said, hey, a reward for seeing land. Now, remember, these sailors literally didn't have much of anything on a ship. You're a sailor, you're on a ship, you have the clothes you're wearing. Now, there's something to all this. So You're on the ship. You have the clothes you're wearing. You don't have a change. You're wearing these clothes for like days and days at a time. Your toilet is a grate over some boards that sits over the ocean, and you just literally, do your duty over the ocean as you're going. You're eating whatever food you could find on the ship and some fish. It was a rough life, and especially if you are on the ocean for days at a time. But Columbus said, hey, I'm going to offer the first man who spots land, I'm going to offer the first man a coat of silk, which to the sailors meant literally zero. Because, on the ship, what was important to you? You can't be changing. You got one set of clothes. Where are you gonna put your coat of silk? What are you gonna do with a coat of silk as you're manning the mast and swabbing the deck? You know what I mean?
But the coat of silk could have also meant status.
Yeah, but
just saying. Oh man, not that it meant anything, but if you're on a ship and the hierarchy is big. It's big bucks. It's like being in prison,
Yeah. So anyway, Columbus sailed out, and they finally seen the New World about 2:00 in the morning. Somebody yells out, "Hey, I see a light out there." And Columbus came out and said, "Yes, I see land." And the crew was happy because they were about ready to, cause a mutiny and jump ship.
After 10 days?
No. This is about another 10 days later. This was about.
Oh, okay. 30. I was going to say, because I heard 10 days and then, okay.
Yeah. Yes. So they set sail in September the 6th from the Canary Islands. And they arrived on the shore of an island, and we can see that here in a second. And they arrived on the shore of an island, and so you can see his trip here, how his travels went. He crossed the Sargasso Sea and made it over to some of these little islands. I don't even know which ones they are, but the Bahamas.
It looks like Cuba.
Yeah, this is Cuba. But he didn't land in Cuba right away. He landed on one of these little islands, and that's where because this would have been his first trip. Now his second trip is a whole different story. But they landed here. They seen the land. They made it there. They found the natives, and right away, what does he do? He stakes out a claim for Spain, for the land, claims it all. Here's our flag, here's our ships. We claim the land. The natives come out, and say, "Oh, who are these people?" Oh no, we went the wrong way here. The natives come out, and the natives were really friendly. He noticed that the natives would give him stuff. They were excited to see these people. They were generally kind, but and Columbus took advantage of that, which is really sad, because as they're trying to be nice to him, he's thinking, how can I, kindness. So he took their stuff. He found that they had some gold, but there was no gold on the island. The people said, "Hey, we didn't get the gold here. It came from somewhere else." And they pointed him in the direction of the gold. And of course, they did some trading. He ended up stealing 6 natives. He gathered up some fauna and flora, bringing back with him gathering up things like sweet potatoes and tobacco, very important things. So, and of course, he gathered up some natives. But old Columbus didn't have much luck at this point. On on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, the poor Santa Maria, they got it parked in the on the shores, and on Christmas Eve, he decided they're on shore, and they left the cabin boy and a few guys on the Santa Maria, and they didn't pay attention. They fell asleep or something, and the ship hit the coral reef and sunk. Now, Columbus is left with 2 ships. Not a very good thing, because the Santa Maria was the biggest ship that they had. And it was very embarrassing for him to, lose the Santa Maria. Hey, you're the captain, you weren't even on board, and your ship sunk. How good is that?
And that has to do with where you anchored it.
Well, yeah, he anchored it, but the who he left in charge, he didn't leave competent people in charge. He just left them in charge, and then he took off, and he's on.
It shouldn't have mattered if if he had anchored it in the correct place in the first place, because I bet you the tide went out, and he was anchored too close to the shoals. But that's because that's bad sailorship. He didn't know how to anchor a ship. Dumb bunny.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what happened. That's kind of and I'm sure he left it on.
And he tried to blame it on the cabin boy, and it's like, but Captain, you're the one that said put the anchors here,
Exactly. Either way, it really went bad. Now he has 2 ships. The bad part about the whole thing was he has 120 men, and he can't make it back to Spain with 120 men on 2 little ships. So he decides to say, I'm going to set up a colony right here, one of the islands there. And so he sets up a colony, and he says, who's going to stay behind? He leaves 39 men behind. They take the wood from the Santa Maria, and they built some houses, and they built a fort out of this old ship that they wrecked. So he builds the ship, wrecks the ship, builds a fort, leaves 39 men behind, and says, adios, I got to go. He comes back to Spain. And of course, this is where, he meets with the queen, and, or he gets there. Hey, hey, queen lady,
So when does he get back? So how long? So it's Christmas, and then.
Yeah, it took him a while. Now he's been gone now. Actually, he comes to Portugal, and he stops in Portugal because that's just right around the Spain area. But when they get to Portugal, they made a pit stop, and the tax man, this Martin Benson, he takes off and goes to Spain. He's the tax collector guy. He's going to tell him about what was really going on the voyage, right? But somehow, before he makes it back to Spain, he dies. So now it's Columbus against everybody else. So it's Columbus's word, Columbus's books. The tax man cannot tell anybody, and probably a good thing for Columbus, if you know what I mean. So Columbus gets back to Spain, and he presents the queen with 6 natives that he brought back, and in full headdress, parades them in. He's a celebrated hero. Look what I brought you. He gives the queen some gold, and tells them all about the great things and the islands and the land, and the Indies got to be right there somewhere. We're going to find them. They're real close. I can just tell. And all these new lands I claimed for you, and blah, blah, blah. Well, he had signed a contract with the queen and the king over all of this, that he was to receive a lot of land and become a governor and of those lands that he discovered. So there was a lot of money in it for him. And so he was pretty happy with that. There was a lot going on there. He was promised land, a governorship. So then they said, okay, great, everything's going on. We're gonna finance you for another go around. You go back, and okay. So this time he went back with 17 ships, 1,200 men and women, to start a colony over there. And of course, we're going to go back to one of these other pages. He sails back. Like I said, he sails back over here to try to, he goes to find his men that he left behind. And it finds out that the natives didn't like those men. The men were taking advantage of the natives. They were treating them badly, raping the women, doing all kinds of horrible things. And so the natives attacked them and killed all the men, destroyed the fort.
And probably ate them.
Probably. So that's what Columbus also did. Columbus also blamed everything on the natives and said, hey, these native people are, they are cannibals. That's what he said. They're cannibals. Well, on his second trip, he brought, what do you think he brought? Soldiers. He brought soldiers, weapons, and priests. He brought along a number of priests to convert the natives into Christianity.
And the priests will get you every time.
Yeah, the priests were there to get you into Christianity, and the soldiers were there to force you to do it. Go figure, right?
The priest will force you to do it too.
Yeah. Either way, these natives were gonna get their bit. And then Columbus gets there, and he sails around. He claims more land, and he finds Cuba, which was known as, the Indians called it, let's see, where did I write that down? I wrote it down here somewhere. The Indians, it was Cologne, something like that. I guess it ended up being mispronounced, but it was Cologne. The Indians were Taínos. The Taínos, there must have been, they said, up to 1 million Taínos living on the islands and in Cuba. Well, and they were friendly and nice, and they didn't have the weapons to fight back. Columbus decided to, we need slaves. Let's make them work. Here you got these natives. They're all doing nice things, but we are gonna bring they brought dogs and weapons, and we're gonna use the dogs to enslave you and battle with you. And the natives, they just they don't know what to think of this. And after they get menaced by the dogs, which they never had, they pretty much bowed down and did whatever they wanted, and they became slaves. Columbus also came up with a system. They found gold in Cuba, I guess, in the mountains, and they decided to enslave the people. So they did. They enslaved the people, and Columbus came up with a neat system. He would give you a medallion if you got your quota of gold, and if you didn't, and then you would receive food and whatever. And if you didn't get your quota for gold and work, you would receive no medallion, and you would get the opposite, less food and probably a whipping. Ain't that wonderful, right? So the natives were not very happy. They were being enslaved. So then Columbus come up with an idea. He wasn't getting enough gold out of them, so he decided to round up like 1,500 natives, these poor Taínos, and ship them back to Spain and sell them as slaves. Unfortunately, most of them on the way back died. They died of horrible death from disease, lack of food. Most of them died. When we got back, like a third of them were left. And then they didn't make good slaves because they were natives, and the natives just, it was really hard to convert the natives to being slaves. They weren't used to it. They weren't bred for that. They weren't workers like, you know, you would imagine them being. So anyway, when they got back to Spain, the king and the queen decided to say Ixnay on the Yahoo and no more slaves from over there. You can't be shipping them over here. They're dying. This you know, looks bad. You know, Columbus, you're just ruining it all. You're killing all these people. Blah blah blah. So, you know, back in the Cuba there, he's decided to convert them all to Christianity and make them slaves on the island. And they were just basically, if they didn't want to do that, they were hunting them down, doing, you know, atrocities with these poor natives. The poor Indians didn't have a chance. The women were so scared of the Spaniards coming that they would literally drop their children and run away because they couldn't, you know, they would be captured or killed, or, you know, vice versa. It just was not a good situation. There's America Vespucci. We were talking about he's the guy that made all the maps. Anyway, poor Columbus there. He decided to eventually go back to the mainland, and he went back. Let's see. Left the colony. Well, he started this colony when he was there in Cuba in a really bad spot that just didn't have the resources and stuff, and the colony was really failing. It was not a really good place to oh, that ain't the one I want to be, and it was bad. By the time,
can I add 2 cents as to why?
Okay, what?
Because it was the islands.
Well, yeah,
and the islands are totally different from you know, from Europe, and so the Indians lived with nature. So they used fruit and, you know, whatever, and, you know, where the English, the Spanish folks, they were not used to the same type of diet, you know, social order kind of thing. And so where it was the natives grew up that way, the English were like, you know, you got to do it our way, and that never works.
Well, the bad part about the natives, the more Spanish people that came over, the people died off of the diseases that they were bringing, like smallpox and measles and you know, things like that. They were dying. The natives had no resistance to the diseases that the Spanish brought with them. But
I'm talking about why the Spanish couldn't make it.
Yeah, but the Spanish were dying too of diseases.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Spanish were, according to what I read, the Spanish were dying of yellow fever and malaria, something that they never experienced either. You know, that was a tropical jungle disease spread by mosquitoes that they just didn't have in Europe. So malaria ran through the Spanish and killed them off, and smallpox and measles and things like that ran through the natives and killed them.
The diseases came from both directions.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes, both directions they were coming from. So it was not a good situation. We think, oh, you know, it was you know, one of those things that he was just bringing, but he was enslaving the natives. He came up with the original enslavement. Man, he was cruel and vicious. I mean, if you didn't do what he said, he'd just kill you. You know, he wouldn't even kill you. He would cut your arms and hands off and cut your tongue out. I mean, even threatened his crew when they came back to say, yes, we are on our way to the West Indies. It is the path. And if they said anything different, he threatened his crew to cut their tongue out. You know, talk about tough. Anyway, so he gets back.
Oh, and we have a day for him?
Yes. I mean, like I said, he was he was in it to make money, and the only way to make money was to sell slaves and gold and bring back spices, which they did. They brought back some chili. They brought back chili spices because that's what they had. They brought back other things too, like tobacco, and sweet potatoes. As you know, sweet potatoes grow in a warm climate. They didn't have anything like that growing in Europe, so it was quite the things. But we don't. That's nothing you're going to make a ton of money on by bringing back some sweet potatoes. You know what I mean? And that's what it was all about. People financing them wanted money. They wanted a product. They wanted something you could bring back and say, listen, this is what product I have found. And what did he find? He found gold, and he found natives as slaves. And that was the trade. So he went back again on the third run. They finally, he begged and begged to go again after he came back the second time. And they said, okay, you just go back, find the gold, whatever. At this point, he made his way to Venezuela. I thought I had a picture of Venezuela, but I guess I don't. Anyway, as you can see on this picture, this is the Caribbean where he would have been. And then he took a trip and he discovered Venezuela. And now this is where things get a little funky, because you think, oh, he got to Venezuela, yada, yada, yada. But as he landed the ship, he knew he was not on an island, because he was attacked by him and his crew, not by natives, but by monkeys. I never knew that. He was attacked by monkeys. Go figure, right? So, so he did eventually step on the continent of South America. He never made it to the continent of North America, even though that we celebrate Columbus Day in North America. He literally never made it to Florida. He made it as close as the Bahama Islands and Cuba. That was his big thing, and Venezuela. So there you go. He just didn't make it. Like I said, he went back. Eventually, he went back to Spain, where he eventually died. He got diseases. He was blind. He was sick. He had dysentery for months and months and months. And dysentery is a death sentence back in the day. You're crapping your brains out. And he went blind, and he died a fairly wealthy man. It's just that he suffered a lot. Let's see if I got a paper on this. Okay, let's see. In the last decade of Christopher Columbus's life, his fortunes shifted dramatically, and his initial voyages to the New World, Columbus faced increasing challenges and opposition. His fourth and final voyage, which began in 1502, was marked with disappointment. Columbus aimed to find a passage to Asia, and he did until the day he died. He thought he did, through Central America. Like I said, Columbus was a little bit crazy. He was real smart, but he's a little crazy. But instead of encountered treacherous waters and hostile conditions, his ships were damaged and supplies dwindled. By the end of his expedition in 1504, he was returned to Spain, his dreams of wealthy and gold largely unfulfilled. Back in Spain, Columbus faced harsh scrutiny from Spanish crown and the public. That's because he didn't make enough money. Accusations of mismanagement and cruelty towards the indigenous populations began to surface. His previous supporters grew increasingly distant, and he struggled to retain favor. Despite his contributions, maybe I went this way. Anyway, so like I said, he didn't really. He died in 1506. So 4 years after his last voyage, he was done. He spent his final days in relative obscurity, reflecting on his life and legacy he would leave behind. He was plagued with the knowledge that his encounters with the New World had resulted in significant suffering for the indigenous peoples. Yeah, he he took the Torinos and of the islands there, and he went destroyed them from 1 million people by bringing disease, slavery, killing them off to their population. By time he left or whatever or died off, their population went from 1 million to 500. Now that's bad. He wrote letters, accounts of his voyages, hoping to secure his place in history, but the harsh realities of his later life weighed heavy on him. Christopher Columbus passed away on May 20th, 1506, in Valladolid, Spain. He died still convinced he had found a new route to Asia, unaware of the full impact of his discoveries. His legacy would evolve over the centuries and subsequent generations, grappling with the complexities of his achievements. And in the darker aspects of colonization, which that's what he started. Columbus's life story serves as a reminder of the triumphs and tragedies of exploration, leaving a lasting mark on history that continues to be debated. So, yes, we are celebrating on Columbus Day a guy who came to enslave the natives, poor natives. I mean, they literally wiped them, made them extinct. So I feel bad for them. I really do. But he didn't just come over. He brought disease that really was really the biggest thing that wiped them out, because they had no tolerance to these diseases at all. And of course, Columbus brought things that bring disease, like pigs. And, the natives had no idea. They were living a wonderful little life, fishing and hunting and growing lots of crops. I imagine these natives were more vegetarian than anything. And all of a sudden, you got the church coming in there saying, you're not going to be a wild heathen anymore, even though you're thinking, why am I? And you're going to become a Christian or we kill you. We have a big army right over there, and we're going to come in and we're going to destroy you or you convert. And being a native, you would be like, what? I don't understand. But hey, the guy says I got to change my religion right now or die. I guess you're going to do something, right? Not looking good on your part. That's all I can say.
And also there was a language barrier too, because they didn't speak the same language.
Oh, of course they didn't. They came over here, and it was, you had to find somebody to speak the language. Now, Columbus on his first trip over really thought he might, be going to the Indies or to the other side of the world, because he brought a guy who could speak several languages, like he could speak Islam or whatever it is, and Hebrew and stuff like that. So he brought a guy who could speak multiple languages with him, just in case. But of course, when he got to the New World, the guy was pretty much useless, because these were natives and they couldn't speak any of those languages. I've learned something on all of this, and it's and we're talking about the natives. The worst is no matter what happens, like you were saying about those people 20,000 years ago, and they came from Europe. Somebody came and destroyed them and conquered their land. And then somebody
that some of them might have been destroyed by the cataclysm.
Well, it could have been, but I'm just saying
they were here before the big event.
But here's the thing: cataclysm or not, somebody always survives, and then those people are less than fewer, and then they get conquered or they integrate with the people that are left behind, just like the tribes of North America. After the diseases wiped those people out to 100% to 90% of them died with all the diseases. Remember, we talked about how they integrated tribes. There's only 2 or 3 of you left. You're going to move over to the next tribe where there's 2 or 3 of them left and become a bigger tribe, because by yourself in the wilderness, you are not going to survive, regardless if you're a native or not. And no matter how good your skills are, a bear comes up, a mountain lion, something like that, and you're all by yourself, a lot harder to live.
Or a woolly mammoth.
Or woolly mammoth, yes, exactly.
I mean, or what was that? A mastodon.
Yeah. Either way, people even today survive better in numbers. Humans are good with multiple people. By yourself, I guess that's why they say it's you're united you stand, divided you fall, and that's it goes same for the Indians, and we can go back to those days where there was less of them, just like the first Columbus left those 39 men there, right? Even with a fort, there was more natives and they were wiped out. But when Columbus came back with 1,200 men and better weapons, then the natives got wiped out. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
But is this a replay? No. Mary wins. There you are. No, it's not a replay. This is live. I'm live. We're live. Anyway, stick around. We got Susie Q. Susie Q's in the house. Scotty Boy. Give a big shout out to everybody. Let's see who was here earlier. Chloe's here, and let's see. Sorry, everybody, if Elderberry's in the house. Yes, he says Catholics stole history. Yes, Catholics stole the history, converted it to whatever they wanted it to be, and presented it as their own. There you go. Let's see. Baby Ghost was in the house, and Nina the Mystic. Nina the Mystic's there. Nina. Anyway. Let's see.
Let me mention something too. Why Christopher Columbus was sick. He went blind, and he was crazy, and it sounds symptomish of gonorrhea.
Yeah.
Later stages of gonorrhea.
And he could have had, I mean, those are just a few of the things, but he could have had malaria too. He could have had a bunch of those, just like everybody else. He was not in good shape. But
blind and crazy is later stages of gonorrhea.
Okay. But in the big picture, he was still the first guy that made headlines of coming over, and it was all because the king and queen, they needed money. They were fighting multiple wars, and this was a good opportunity for them to invest in a ship that could maybe bring them some riches. I guess that would be a pretty good investment. If somebody said, it'd be like saying, hey, we're going to invest in Bitcoin or something. You know what I mean?
Yep. Or let's invest in a lithium mine.
Yeah, exactly. But we gotta move the people out one way or another. Say in a nonchalant way. And what's the best way to move the natives out of their land? Well, if they just die off, right? One way or another. It doesn't even matter if it's a storm, it's natural disaster. See, nowadays they can't really wipe you out much with a disease that this kind of plays in today's realm. So let's just word it that way so we don't get strikes from YouTube. We'll just say that
right. They'll take you down like they did me.
Yeah.
Of course, I deserve it.
so the idea
the first one I didn't, but the second one I did deserve.
Anyway, would you get striked again yesterday?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I know, because I was listening to what you were saying. You were talking about how they pulled down my stream from the day before, and then you were mentioning all those Ashne things, and I'm thinking, why are you doing this? Now they're listening.
Because they wanted to see if it would, they don't ever tell you, what you said. So I just said everything I could think of, and sure enough, the day before they took me down by 9:30 in the morning. Yesterday, they took me down by 8:30 in the morning.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I was listening.
They already had me flagged. So I'm in I'm in Yahoo jail until this time next week. So
I guess no show for you tonight. But anyway, the point
nope.
is that I remember listening to you and I kept thinking, oh my gosh, I wanted to chime in. I was so busy, but I couldn't. And all I kept hearing was you were saying all those key words that would give you a big red flag. And I thought, why are you saying this? They're going to ixnay your channel yet. Anyway, that was my thought. I know you were, but don't get on there and say all those things. Anyway, we're going to reword it so I don't get taken down.
No. I'm
The idea is, though, just like the natives that lived, there's people in our country that are living in areas, and they can't kill you off with a disease like the Columbus did. So they invent other ways to do it, and which is brilliant on their part. I got to give it to them. They have ways to do that. And
yep.
the bad part is, this is the bad part. We all sit around watching places like over there in the tropical islands of Pineapple, and we all know where that is, when the big fire went through, and we went, oh my, and now look at what happened over here. And everybody's doing oh my, and now it's going to happen in Florida, and people are going, again. Oh my. Well, you know what? Shame on us. We're doing the too much. Oh my. And we're doing the same thing. So, you know what? We got to stand up someday. We have to do, a little bit of, instead of doing oh my, we have to stand up and say, oh no, not again. That's how I'm going to put it.
Yeah, one of the things, living here in Georgia, I'm very proud of Governor Kemp for what he's done. Trump was down here a few miles away there in Valdosta, like Monday or Tuesday after. I mean, he was here before anybody else showed up. And so you're like, oh, well, Trump don't care. He was here before anybody else, okay? And Governor DeSantis, Kamala wants to pick a fight with him today when he's got another, he'd been working his tail off, getting people, and everything coordinated, with this storm that's fixing to hit tomorrow, the next day, and so it's like, but not a word from, we've heard from DeSantis, we heard from Governor Kemp, and a little bit from the governor of South Carolina, but not one word from the governor of North Carolina. I mean, all these other people were sending him stuff, not a word from him. And so somebody ought to, reconvene and maybe impeach their governor there in North Carolina, because our governors, I'm kind of sort of, because I grew up in Florida, and my sister and folks are down there. So I still consider Florida to be, still mine, and being so close. But, they're on this stuff. They got their folks, and they're out there taking care of it. The governor here said that in one of the big storms we had recently, because we've had a couple come through here, that they had to replace over 1,200 telephone poles. And he said at this particular moment, we already are looking at having to replace 17,000 telephone poles. And he said, and that's just our first estimate. So, I mean, think about having to put up 17,000, telephone poles. I mean, just that, electric poles. That's a bunch. So, but anyway, it is a shame for them folks up there. That was one of the things I was bitching about. But we still need to help when we can. And there are some people who are saying, don't, they're trying to scam folks, who send us money, blah, blah, blah. And then there's some legitimate folks like this men's group or something. And if you send them money, they will go down to the bank and get cash. They're handing these people cash.
Wow.
Instead of checks, or, they're literally handing these folks cash. So it's like, do your homework, but, there are some good folks. If anything, it goes to show how good humanity really is.
Yes. When it comes down to it, people are really nice. That's the thing. 90% of the people are nice. It only takes that, small percentage of people, maybe even 1%, as low as 1%, to ruin it for everybody.
Well, we got to blame this on our government, because there were Army folks sitting there with equipment and helicopters, but they did not have the okay to go.
See,
and that goes to the governor. The governor of that state, somebody ought to throw him in jail.
That's the thing. It all boils to the higher ups.
Yep.
So, okay, we got to quit talking about this before we get a strike. So,
that's as far as we're going. But to the point, though, there is help out there. There are people who are willing to help. But if you don't have the leadership, and the governor of North Carolina they ought to whoop him.
Yeah, I think people, put it this way, in my head, I think people, I mean, I hate to say it, but I think this is a good wake-up call for people to really look around and say, this could happen. It could happen to me, and it could happen to you too. It's weather, and nobody, is there anybody going to come and help me except my neighbor? That's why I always say it's really important for you to know your neighbor, and to be nice to your neighbor, because you never know when the flood comes, the fire's burning down, whatever it is, that you have a nice neighbor that you can get help from. Like I said, humans work together as a group well. And when you try to do it yourself, it's very hard. It's very hard. You will not make it.
And one of the things before we start this story, there are a lot of folks who are prepping, so they've got, freeze-dried food or whatever and stuff, and it's in here, and they got it and so forth. That folks have got, bug-out bags, and, they're in the trunk of the car, and they're this. Think about that, because they lost their cars, they lost their houses. So as much as some of these people might have been prepared, and I know some of them mountain folk up there, I got relatives up there, so they're prepared, but not when all your stuff gets washed away. Now what do? We thought we were prepared. So you have to make sure that you're prepared, but think a little further than that. Well, I got my stuff here, that's all. No,
Mm-hmm.
It may end up being more than that.
Well, and the thing is it's the karma thing, and I talk about this a lot. If you can't afford to give anything, send good intentions. If you can, then give to some. And if you don't want to give to those people, give to somebody that you know, or that you can physically give to, and it all trickles down some way. In a weird sense of way, you help this guy, it will travel that way. It's all about the intent. And you don't know how the world works, but it does work like that. I may help a guy with a flat tire, and tomorrow, while he's getting on the road and he's going over there to help, and if I didn't help him with the flat tire, he'd have never made it. So my helping would, you see where I'm going with this? It doesn't mean that you have to say, I'm going to help that guy over in Timbuktu land, and I'm sending money, because it might not get there, but somehow or another, it will travel. Anyway, we got to get on with the story.
And also, it doesn't, for like me that I can't get around as well as I used to. It doesn't mean, physically. You can call somebody or send somebody an email or make sure they're okay. So reach out and touch somebody if you can't do anything else.
Well, that's what I say. If you can't, just send good intentions.
That's right.
And it all boils down because someday you may be the person that needs that help, that extra food, and that's why I said, if we're united, things get done. If you're by those people over there, if they were by themselves and nobody wanted to help them, and your house blew away and your car was in the drink, and there you sit, you got nothing, and nobody wants to help you, well, it's going to be really rough and you may die. But if you have other people to help you, these people might rise up and eventually have a new house, new car, have a good life again, all for a little bit of help. And that's all. Sometimes that's all it takes. People turn their lives around because somebody was nice. I don't know about you, but I've heard a lot of stories where somebody was going to off themselves and become unalive, right? And just because somebody sat down next to them and said some nice words, they changed their mind. And literally, that's all we need. We need to be a little compassionate. Sometimes that can be the difference between life and death.
And sometimes we need to be a lot compassionate.
Yes. And you know what the big thing is? I realized sometimes people just need you to listen. They want to vent, and they just need you to listen.
Yep. So that's a good segue.
Yeah.
Y'all sit down and listen. To the next story coming up.
Got a great story. Literally.
Yeah, and it's called The Great Head. And I believe that way back when I have read this story, if not very similar. So I am still reading from the American Indian fairy tales of Snowbird, the Water Tiger, etc. by Margaret Compton, 1907. The Great Head. Lone Wolf was an Indian who, with his wife and 10 sons, moved some distance from their tribe and built themselves a lodge in the forest. The man and his wife were both old, and when sickness came, they had no strength to fight it, but died within a few moons of each other. The sons were too young to live by themselves, and therefore went to the wigwam of their uncle, Deep Lake, their mother's brother. He gave them food and shelter until the elder ones were able to hunt and so provide for the brothers. One morning, several of them started out, each going in a different direction. The eldest went towards the north because he was better able to travel far and to fight the fierce animals which lived in that region. The night came, bright with many stars, but he did not return. The next morning, the second brother set out in the same direction, thinking he might find the trail of the other. He did not return. Then the third brother went in search of those who had disappeared, and he, too, was seen no more. Thus, they all followed one another until only the youngest, Little Elk, was left with his uncle. He was too small and feeble to hope to succeed where his brothers had failed, and Deep Lake forbade him going out alone, for fear the witch or giant who had destroyed his brothers should do him harm. One day, while Deep Lake and Little Elk were in the woods together, they heard a deep groan, which seemed to come from the ground. They searched and found a man covered with mold and lying under a great log. "Quick," said Deep Lake to his nephew, "run to the lodge and get the bear's oil." Little Elk hurried to the wigwam and returned with a jar of bear's oil, with which he rubbed the man until he became conscious and was able to speak. His words were very strange, considering that he had never seen either of them before. "You," said he, looking at the boy, "are Little Elk. You had 9 brothers who set out towards the barren place to hunt, and not one of them ever returned." The old man began to suspect magic and asked tremblingly, "Who are you?" "I," said the stranger, "am Rottenfoot, the brother of the Great Head." Deep Lake knew well about the Great Head. It was an enormous head without any body. It had large eyes that rolled about fearfully, and long, coarse hair like that of the grizzly bear, and it streamed over the huge cleft rock that was his home. Seen or unseen, if it caught sight of any living thing, it would shriek in a shrill voice, "I see thee! I see thee! Thou shalt die!" Deep Lake had been a brave chief, and he thought perhaps he could conquer the Great Head, or that at least he could find out about his nephews, whom he felt sure the head had destroyed. And the plan which occurred to him was to be kind to the head's brother, so that he might learn more about him. He therefore invited Rottenfoot to his wigwam. Gave him the most comfortable seat by the fire, rubbed his stiff limbs with bear oil, and set dainty foods before him. When he was warm and well fed, Deep Lake began to question him about the head. "Could you bring him here?" he said at last. "He would not come merely for the asking, but I might lure him hither," was the reply. The next day, Rottenfoot set out in search of his brother. He promised to use all his skill in magic, if necessary, to bring him to the lodge. "Have ready some blocks of the maple tree for the head's food in case he should return with me," said he, as he set out on his journey. He pulled up a hickory tree and made arrows of its roots. Then he crept cautiously along until he saw the cleft rock in the distance. Fearing that he might be seen, he used his magic and crawled inside a mole and told the animal to burrow in the ground so as to hide him. It was not long before he heard the head growl, I see thee, thou shalt die. He looked out and saw that his brother was watching, and he was watching an owl, which immediately dropped from the tree. Its flesh crumbled and its bones immediately lay bare. Rottenfoot drew out an arrow and aimed it at his brother. It was but a small arrow when it started, but it grew larger and larger as it neared the head. It did not strike him, but flew back, growing smaller and smaller until it was its original size, and slipped itself into the quiver at Rottenfoot's side. Feeling sure that the head would follow him, he turned and ran towards Deep Lake's wigwam. The ridge that the mole made as it passed along completely hid him from the view of the head, who soon followed in a roaring tempest. Deep Lake heard him tearing through the forest and provided himself and Little Elk with war clubs in case he should attack the wigwam. Just as Rottenfoot reached the wigwam and was about to jump out of the mole's skin, the head recognized his brother. He was so delighted to see him, for he had long since supposed him dead. He laughed so loudly that the clouds were broken and a rainbow appeared above the trees. On hearing the change in his voice from fierce anger to laughter, Deep Lake and Little Elk dropped their clubs and brought out the blocks of the maple tree. The head devoured them greedily. When he had finished, he told them that he had made up his mind to kill a witch who lived towards the north and who destroyed twice as many animals and men as he did. I never kill the brave or the innocent, said he, but she has no mercy and draws men to their death by her sweet songs. They lull the unwary hunter as the snow lulls him when he staggers and falls in the forest. Deep Lake then said, let me go with you, for the witch has slain my nephews, 9 men, all brothers of this lad. No, said the head, I will take the boy, and he shall help to avenge their death. They traveled in the night, and early in the morning came in sight of the witch's lodge. It was a cave filled with dead men's bones. Their fingers hung from the roof. Their scalps were heaped together for her couch. Their skulls were her bowls and kettles. She sat rocking herself to and fro, singing in a low, sweet song, the notes of which made all who heard it turn cold and shiver till all their flesh was shaken off of them, and they became nothing but dry bones. The head had told Little Elk to put 2 clover blossoms into his ears so that he could not hear her. When they were near her lodge, he said to the lad, I will ask her the question, how long have you been here? This will break the charm of her song upon me, but you will see the hair fall from my head. You must put it back as fast as it comes out, and it will grow at once and very long. Then I will jump upon her and bite her. You must take the pieces of flesh from my mouth and throw them from you, saying, be a fox, a bird, or anything you choose. So they will run off and never return. As they crept up to the cave, the head shouted, how long have you been here? His hair began to fall out in long, thick locks, which Little Elk at once replaced. The head then jumped up upon the witch, and she screamed and begged for mercy. But he answered, you had no mercy on others, you must die. He bit her and killed her, and all the plain was covered with animals, and the river was filled with fish from the pieces of her body. To make sure of her never coming to life again, they burned her bones and scattered them on the river. Then the head told Little Elk to search for the year-old bones, which would be whiter than the others, and laid them together. Now, said he, I am going home, and as I go, I will raise a tempest that will strike into the mouth of this cave. As it touches the bones, you must say, all arise. Little Elk had just laid down the last bone when he heard the wind rising in the forest. As it blew into the cave, he called loudly, all arise. The bones stood up and were immediately covered with flesh. The brothers recognized one another, and one and all praised Little Elk for his courage and his patience. Then they vanished down the trail in the forest. The end. So there wasn't any head chopping.
No head chopping. That's kind of crazy. But people were getting scalped and the bones were getting piled up. Yeah.
Yeah, but she was just a witch and it happened because of who she was. But anyway, you know, it wasn't that she but you know, that's not the same. I do remember that the basic story of them going and the brothers disappearing. And I thought they was going to be like in a tree or something. Remember, one of those stories had them, they'd been swallowed up in a tree or something. Or no, he said, you know, all arise or I'm going to chop this tree down or something. Anyway.
Yep. Oh, yeah. You got some cards pulled for us tonight, too?
Yep, I'm sitting here looking at them.
Ah, good deal. Good deal. Let's see. Yeah, Mary was saying that thanks for providing us with a place to get together. Yeah, because they can't get together with you because you got your channel whip snapped.
Yeah, I'm in prison for the next week, so.
Well, I hope it.
And I really do deserve it. You know, I shouldn't have done it, but I did. I've done dumb things before, and you know, I've just So I just cussed with every word I could, you know, think about stuff.
Like I said, I was listening, and I thought, oh man, he's venting. He's saying all these things. What the think? You're going to get this video chopped too, and you did. Big time.
But I do want to make this one comment. There are people out there with channels who talk about this stuff directly. And my first one, I did not say anything that isn't already on some other channels.
Yeah, I don't understand. That's the thing. I don't understand how people can. One guy can talk about it, and I'm thinking, what did he put down? What did he put? Is he under entertainment or news? You know, because they ask you, is this news, entertainment, or is it this or that or whatever? And you know, if you put it under one, do they give you a strike because it's not under the other? Because they really don't give you much, but yet, like you said, one guy's saying the same word you're saying, but on his channel it's okay. You know,
and they're monetized.
Yeah. Or is it that they strike you because you're not monetized and they're not making any money from you?
I think they want me to move.
Oh.
I think they're hoping I'll drop dead.
Move over. We got to move.
I've only got like 6 years of videos or something like that. I mean, there's a bunch. I started way back when, and so I haven't been real prolific, but I've been here for the long haul, right?
Yep.
So, but the fact that they had pulled last night's video down by 8:30 this morning, they were waiting on me. They were waiting on me, you know. So it's like, okay.
Yeah. Well, the way they were just waiting for you to screw up.
I mean, well, I should have took them at least until 9:30. You know, they were waiting on me. 8:30, boom, out of here. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. And the bad part is it's always it's a computer just finding random words. It's not a person actually listening to all of that. Because if it was, they would know that you were just on a rant. And see, that's where we've given up our way of doing things to give it to AI, and eventually AI will become our God. It will become our way of life. My buddy who comes on here once in a while, and he's in the chat. I don't know if he's in there tonight, Sunset Dreamer, and he says a lot of times, hey, after another president or two, there won't be any more presidents. It'll be AI running things. Yep. And and I thought about that a lot. And I think maybe it's too soon to say, maybe the next president or one after. But eventually, he's right. It will happen. And the only reason it will is because the people that could be president are growing up in a world where everything is recorded. And somebody, maybe AI, will figure this out. And when you go to run for president, they will scroll through all your phone stuff, all your Facebook stuff, all of everything you've ever said and done, from, private stuff, being in your car, talking to yourself or talking to a friend on a phone, or whatever you said, whatever you did, somebody will be watching, and it'll be on a camera recorded somewhere in the cloud. And with that, they will slander a person by, oh boy, look at what he said, look at what he did. They're already doing it with the guys that are running all the time now. Like, what he said on the curbside outside the studio, and he said this. This is it, or look what he did when he was 12 years old. He was riding around his bicycle saying he's going to rule the world. Well, it's all out of context when you're a little kid saying that stuff. But it's enough to make people say, I don't want to vote for that guy. And where are you going to find somebody who's so perfect, nothing ever happened to them?
Yeah, that guy, he farted in public, just...
Yeah, exactly. What did he, the other day they were talking about the T-Man and saying that, at some dinner, he was talking about women or something. I don't even remember what it was, and I'm thinking, come on, the guy has like no privacy. All he has to do is say two words and they kind of slam it together. And the next thing you know, we have a scandal. He said X, Y, Z, and then of course they're going to take it out of context, and uh, I think
And
Lucky's right.
they literally chop up his words and rearrange them. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it's just astronomical.
And then
You know,
nowadays with all that voiceover stuff, I mean, I get ads on my
oh
email
yeah.
all the time saying, "Here, sign up, and your voice can be the voice of this computer," and just so you can get like. And I've done it here too. I've had shows about AI where I've taken the voice and I've put it in the Chat GPT. Chat GPT writes up a story, and then I put it in the thing here, and it types out makes a voice, and then the voice reads the story so none of it was real. The AI wrote it, the AI spoke it, and then I put it on video, and the AI made the video come to life. And all I did was type in what I wanted, and it did all the work. And I post a video. How'd that happen, right? I try not to do that very much.
So much for creativity.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Yeah, F Kitty says, yeah, grab them by what. And Lucky says the AI is the only one who watches us tiny YouTubers. Yeah, because all it is an algorithm that scans for the words we say. You say too many words and it picks up on them. Probably gives you a scale 1 to 10. He said 5 words. He's okay. He said 7 words. 10 words. He's getting a strike. More than that, you're getting taken down. Right? Anyway, so what do we have for?
We've got grouse coming up.
Grouse.
Yeah, we've got the sacred spiral, and grouse is up front. Is right side up.
Okay.
And the sacred spiral is one of the oldest known symbols for personal power. When you think of the grouse medicine, visualize a whirlpool or even a tornado. For the sacred spiral will take you to the center. The spiral is a metaphor for personal vision and enlightenment. Many initiatives and vision quests paint spirals on their bodies and believe the great mystery will favor them with visions of power and purpose because of this symbol. If you have grouse medicine in your cards, undertake a meditation on the various qualities of movement within your world. Begin by visualizing the sun as one member of a huge group of stars swirling in the massive pinwheel shape of the Milky Way. Then draw yourself out of this pinwheel and into the spiraling of your own DNA. Analyze the way you move through your world. How do you picture yourself in the act of locomotion? What kind of reaction do you create with the energy you send out into the universe? And boy, this is a weird time to be sending out energies. Just like me, you don't want to send out the wrong energies and have them strike your channel. So many spiritual disciplines ask that you create all external movement in order to recognize the inner life. You can spend a lifetime learning of Grouse's lesson on how to harmonize your dance with Mother Earth and how to offer the dance as a creation of selfless beauty. So dance, my friends, dance. The next one is Wolf Upside Down, number 15. Dance the spiral to find out about yourself. The Whirling Dervishes. If wolf is reversed, you're being asked to expand your limited view of the present situation. Wolf is the teacher. Wolf is the pathfinder, the forerunner of new ideas, who returns to the clan to teach and to share medicine. Wolf takes one mate for life and is loyal like dog. If you were to keep company with wolves, you would find an enormous sense of family within the pack, as well as a strong individualistic urge. These qualities make wolf very much like the human race. As humans, we also have an ability to be a part of the society and yet still embody our own individual dreams and ideas. In the great star nation, wolf is represented by the dog star Sirius, which legend tells us was the original home of our teachers in the ancient times, ancient aliens. Sirius was thought to be the home of the gods by the ancient Egyptians and is still considered to be so by the Dogon tribes of Africa. And if wolf is reversed, you are being asked to expand your limited view of the present situation. Doing this may entail a great deal of courage and a willingness to look at new ideas. It could also require that you delete some old ideas to make room for the new ones and the expansiveness that always comes when you're willing to learn. The gift of wisdom comes to you when you have walked enough pathways and found enough dead ends to truly know the forest. In the discovery and rediscovery of every inch of ground comes the knowledge that nothing ever remains the same. Contrary wolf may also be telling you that stagnation or fear of asserting your viewpoint has bogged down the flow of the change in your life. Wolf reversed is always urging you to seek the teachers or pathfinders that will show you the way to new life experiences. Remember, the teacher or pathfinder may be the small, still voice within you, as well as a person or a leaf, a cloud, a stone, a tree, a book, or the Great Spirit. To live is to grow, and growing comes through accepting all life forms as your teachers. Become wolf and take up the sense of adventure. You may just stop howling and learn how to become the moon. The next one up is Buffalo, number 19, upside down. Oops, wrong way. Buffalo is prayer and abundance. In the Lakota tradition, it was the white buffalo calf woman who brought the sacred pipe to the people and taught them to pray. As the pipe was loaded with tobacco, every family in nature was asked to enter into the pipe and share its medicine as prayer and praise to the heavens, to the Creator. The smoke was considered to be visual prayer and was very sacred and cleansing. All animals are sacred, but in many traditions, white buffalo is the most sacred. The appearance of white buffalo is a sign that prayers are being heard, that the sacred pipe is being honored, and that the promises of prophecy are being fulfilled. Buffalo was the major source of sustenance. It gave meat for food and hides for clothing, soft robes for winters, and the hooves were for glue. The medicine of buffalo is prayer, gratitude, and praise for that which has been received. Buffalo here is upside down. To receive buffalo upside down is a signal that you have forgotten to seek help when it has been needed. If your hand is closed in a fist, you cannot receive the bounty of abundance. In understanding the significance of reversed buffalo, you may have to ask yourself a few questions. Have I forgotten my eternal partner, the Great Spirit? Am I pushing myself too fast in the physical and not keeping up with the spiritual? Have I forgotten to honor the ways of others and to afford them the same respect that I wish for myself? Become the buffalo. Feel the smoke of prayer and praise, and praise change your buffalo robe to white, so that you may be answer to the prayers of the world. Next one up is beaver, number 22. Beaver is builder. Beaver is the doer of the animal kingdom, and beaver medicine is akin to water and to earth energies and incorporates a strong sense of family and home. And so does the wolf. There's family and clan right there. So if you were to look at the dams that block woodland streams, you'll find several entrances. In building its home, beaver always leaves itself many alternate escape routes. This practice is a lesson to all of us not to paint ourselves into corners. And maybe during this time of storms and weather and stuff, make sure that you have another outlet. A doer is characterized by industriousness, and beaver knows that limitation cancels productivity. Limitation cancels productivity. Them folks up in the mountains right now, limitation. They're limited in what they can do. It cancels the productivity. So that's an obvious statement. To understand beaver medicine, you might take a look at the power of working and attaining a sense of achievement. And building a dream, teamwork is necessary. To accomplish a goal with others involves working with the group mind. Group mind constitutes harmony of the highest order without individual egos getting in the way. If beaver has appeared in your spread, it may be time to put your ideas into action or to complete some project that has been neglected. Beaver card could also be asking you to settle differences with fellow workers or friends. Beaver tells you to look for alternative solutions to life's challenges and to protect the creations which you put your love and energies into. Next is dog, number 14. 2 canines in the same spread. Dog is loyalty. Dog has been considered the servant of humanity throughout history. If a person carries dog medicine, he or she is usually serving others or humanity in some way. Here you will find the charity worker, the philanthropist, the nurse, the counselor, the minister, and the soldier. Dog is the medicine that embodies the loving gentleness of best friend and the half-wild protector energy of territorial imperative. In examining dog medicine, you might find that you have found personal memories of owning and loving dog as a pet. The message that dogs are trying to give you is that you must delve deeply into your sense of service to others. If dog has been yelled at or paddled, it still remains love to the person who was the source of its bad treatment. Dog medicine asks you to look at how readily your sense of loyalty is countermanded by your need for approval. If you pull the dog card, you may need to consider, depending on the situation, have I recently forgotten that I owe my allegiance to my personal truth in life? Is it possible that gossip or the opinions of others have jaded my loyalty? Have I denied or ignored someone who was trying to be my loyal friend? Have I been loyal and true to my own goals? So tonight we've got Beaver's family. We need to find out if we're still being loyal. Buffalo is always about prayers and is the giver because there was so much. Wolf is also in the pack and upside down. You know, you need to maybe look at what's going on around you and to look further than, you know, just to your front door. And grouse is obviously telling us to dance. We need to do the circle dance and to find ourselves into that inner self and peace. So, my friends, I hope that the cards meant something to you tonight.
Mm-hmm.
That was an interesting spread.
It was. It was. Oh, yeah. I love Australian Shepherds, too. They're pretty. I got a border collie, and she's the best. Mm-hmm.
And I found out that Duggar is an English setter.
Oh, there you go.
So there you go, my friends. I hope you like the story, and I hope you like the cards.
Yeah. Well, we already know the answer. No show for you tonight.
Yeah, and I apologize for being such a butthole this morning, and I just went off.
But yeah, thanks to everybody that came tonight. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Hey, we wouldn't have a good show without y'all.
Me too.
In the house, Chloe, Susie Q stayed up late to be with all of us and enjoy the show. Scotty Boy, thank you. Witchy Moon, Chloe, thank you, everybody. Everybody that was in here, man, oh man, we had a lot of people in here coming and going. Elderberry, if you're still listening, hats off to you. There you go. Lucky Stone, Lucky knows how the algorithms run, and he's always worried about the thing, you know, YouTube, because he got his channel striked and then it was a mistake. So hey, he's back up and running. Go over there and check out some of his videos. He's got some of the best short videos. I tell you, he comes up with some good subjects, and they're short. Listen to what he's got to say and make a comment or two and give him a thumbs up. And so my co-host for a Saturday night keeps his channel on. So there you go.
Let me mention something I just remembered. Next Tuesday night, I hopefully will be in the hospital. I'm having a procedure done. I think next week is the 15th. And so I go in the morning, they do the procedure, and they have to keep me overnight, flood me with saline solution, and I won't know till I get there. I will take my cell phone and etc. I might not be able to read a story because I won't have the laptop or anything, but I might be able to play, I might be able to stick with you at least for the first hour. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
I'll find out when I get to the hospital next week, but we'll see how it goes.
Okay. Well, keep us posted. And, if I have to get a part-time co-host, I'll work on it all week. I'm sure we'll find somebody who will step up to the plate and help us out.
I'll let you know. Robert.
Yep.
And thank you, everybody. And cheers, by the way. That's too early, ain't it?
All right. Yeah. Well, anyway, I just want a big shout out there to everybody. And remember, people, go out and do something nice for your neighbor, for yourself. Get prepared. With all this stuff going on in the world, just tells you that prepping isn't for the faint of heart. It's for the prepared people who don't want to be dependent on somebody's good charity. I know I'd rather be the guy giving than the guy saying I need help. But hey, it's the way it is. So get yourself a bug out bag. It's for any time. It doesn't mean that it has to be a hurricane or it could be a fire or a tornado, and you got to leave your house. Something came up. You don't know when you're going to come back. Get yourself a bug out bag. Look it up on YouTube. I should probably do a video on that. Put in those things in that bag, like a spare set of clothes, some food, some water.
Socks.
What? Socks? Yes.
Socks.
Yeah, have a dry, one of those cheap dollar ponchos, maybe a pocket knife, a lighter. You never know. There's lots of things. A candle, if you're cold and you're in your car or something, and you got to stay warm. Did you know by burning a candle will warm up the degrees in that car enough so you don't freeze to death?
And get a plumber's candle, what they call them. The big, thick ones that burn slow. You don't want a tall, thin one. You want a thick one. Yes.
Widgie Moon says have flashlight batteries. Yeah, better yet, have a flashlight, maybe a rechargeable one. Or F Kitty says a solar blanket. One of those cheap $2 solar blankets, throw that in there, a poncho, some batteries, a flashlight, a straw, a water straw, here you go. F Kitty says water straw. Yes, it's a good thing. You can make up a bug out bag for, $40-50. You could be so prepared, you won't even know what to do. Buy yourself some, you can't afford an MRE and you can't afford, and if you do get an MRE, they last forever. It's just enough food and things to keep you going. But better yet, you go to the store and buy one of those little packets that has that rice, and it's like with some cheesy stuff or something, and you can just throw it in a pot and warm it up and some hot water, and there you got a little meal.
Well, and here's something I want to establish too is having been in the mountains and camped many times, it's hard for me to believe that those folks don't have water. And what I mean by that is, if folks out there, if you don't know how to purify some water to drink, you need to learn.
Yeah. Just don't drink the water.
You need to learn how to purify water. It is not hard. There are many different types of ways that you can purify water. One of the things is you dig a little shallow hole. You put a cup in the middle of it. You put a piece of plastic over the top of it and drop a penny on top. And when the sun comes up, it will heat up the ground around it. The moisture will come up and hit the plastic. And because that penny's sitting there, it'll drip down into the cup.
Nice.
You don't have to do anything. So, and it's pure water that you don't have to worry about boiling it or nothing. And that's one absolutely simple thing you can do. So, but people need to learn not just how to grab a bug out bag, but them folks didn't have a bug out bag. But and everybody complained of water. They've got plenty of water up there that nobody knew or knows how to purify it.
Yeah, and if you don't purify it, you can get crazy diseases, dysentery and stuff, make yourself sick, and within a few days you could be dead. Let me go through some of the stuff that people had said. F. Kitty said water straw. Witchy Moon says flashlight batteries. F. Kitty says solar blanket. Susie Q says hand warmers. F. Kitty says a knife. Mary Wynn says sending you a love and complete success and health to you, Hawkeye. Okay, Susie Q says protein bars. That's a good one. Protein bars keep for a long time. They're wrapped up. F. Kitty says, get yourself some rope, 300-pound test rope. Good deal. She also says multi-tool. That's a good one. Throw a multi-tool in there, and you're good to go. Susie Q says, so Vaseline and a cotton balls, waterproof matches. Yes, you want to be able to start a fire to boil some water with the pot that you're going to bring. A little pot or a can or something, and you boil the water, and it's safe to drink again. So there you go. Mary Wynn says, yes, we are getting the bug out bag together now. Oh, it's good. Get an orange. An orange makes a good candle. Oh, I'd like to see that one. Water, first aid. A small first aid kit. Absolutely. Even if it's just a few Band-Aids, a little tape or something, and some antibacterial ointment, and a little bit of alcohol or something, or peroxide. Nuts keep for a long time. They're good, full of protein. Let's see what else we got. Trail mix. Yes, trail mix is good. Protein and nuts and something to fill up your belly with.
Dried fruit.
Did you know, F. Kitty says, boil it in a plastic bottle. Yes, you can boil things in a plastic bottle. Wow. It's for short-term, short-term survival. And here, most important too, maybe a book, a survival pamphlet. Yes, I have one of those little books and waterproof pages in mine, so that when you get out there and you forget all about this stuff, you can go, hey, I got that survival book with I can just look it up in there, because we all forget stuff. And in an emergency, you're not thinking. You want to have a little book. They're little bitty books ready to go,
But what happened with these folks, though, up in Georgia too, but I mean, all that stuff got took away.
Yeah.
They didn't have that. They had a bug out bag, but it got took with the storm. So here is my please. This should be a warning to everybody. Study up on prepping with nothing. How to sure enough scrounge around after a storm and find something in your neighborhood to do. Do not depend on your bug out bag. You must depend on your skills. So you should learn skills. How can I take an old coffee can I found on the side of the stream, rinse it out, and I'm going to turn this into my pot, because my pot and all my stuff went down the river. Yeah. So I found something. So you got to learn how to prep with what you find.
That's right. And that's the thing. Scavenging is always a good thing to do, because there's probably a lot of things around, and then there's things that you might not even have in your bug out bag. Like, you could put a lighter in your pocket, grab it off the shelf as you run out of the house. A lighter to light a fire so you could boil the water in would probably be more important than bringing the pot and the bug out bag, because at least you could find that tin can and boil your water, because you had a lighter to start the fire, right?
Or figure something else out. Exactly. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a bug out bag, but these people didn't have time for a bug out bag. Beside the man, the man was getting ready to get in his car to leave, and down the mountain came this big mud storm and thing and took his car away right in front of him.
Yep. Well, that's the thing. You can't be prepared for everything, but the idea of a bug out bag or whatever is the idea that you can grab and go. And maybe he grabbed it, threw it in his car, and his car ran down. Bad luck to him. But you're right. The skills too are important. Learn how to start a fire. It's a lot harder than you think to start a fire, even with a lighter. I got a lighter out. But you know what? In an emergency situation, you can't be out there with your lighter flicking the bit and hold, because then you run out of gas. You only have a little bit of gas in there, and it's gone. You got to be able to do it on the first couple clicks, and there's something's burning, and you got to get it going. But that's the thing. Have some survival skills, knowing that maybe you can pick up some rope that's laying on the ground or an old tarp and make it into a tent. Or learn how to tie. I'm trying, what my big thing is I'm trying to learn how to tie knots. I'm not very good at.
There's a really good knot channel. This guy is great. Oh man. But yes. So my friends, Duggar's got to go outside and we got to go, I'm sure. But I do want to say, please, if you got a bug out bag or stuff like that, but, when your house gets knocked down, torn away, or whatever, having survival skills is better than any book, any other thing, because if you don't have the skills, you're just going to sit there and then wait on somebody to come get you.
Well,
and that may be a long time.
Well, exactly. But the thing is I learned one thing when I put my bug out bag together and everything. I realized that you have to do the skills and practice a little on that stuff to have the skills. You need to tie the knots. You need to go out there and try to start a fire, because sometimes it doesn't look as easy. I packed a bug out bag and it was like 50 pounds. It was way too heavy. I realized I had to do different stuff. So anyway, I know you got to go, and I want to say thank you, everybody. Remember, go out, do something nice, be the frequency you want to receive. We love you all. Peace, everybody.
Cheers. Duggar says bye.